Welcome to the Balancing Ambitions podcast. I'm your host, Kim Menipace. You are not alone in your pursuit to balance family life, work, side hustles, and taking care of yourself. Balance is not easy to achieve by any means, but we can all work to get better at it together by sharing our stories, tips, and wisdom. Let's dive into this week's episode. Brad Flanagan is a U.S. Army combat veteran turned real estate investor, coach, and entrepreneur. Alongside his wife, Jamie, he co-leads the Flipping Flanagans, a multi-million-dollar real estate business with properties across Arkansas and Colorado. After serving in Afghanistan, Brad transitioned into finance, leading Nebraska's largest mortgage branch and generating nearly $500 million in business since 2019. Together, the Flanagans manage a diverse real estate portfolio, run multiple businesses, and offer coaching programs focused on value based investing and personal growth. The retreats help participants adopt a CEO mindset, blending relationship health with financial strategy, drawing from their own journey of divorce, remarriage, and business success. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Thank you so much, Kim. Awesome to visit with you as usual.
I forgot that I also attended your boot camp after Vegas. You were doing, was it a couples boot camp? Remind me again.
Building wealth through real estate. We do like a 7 week accelerator course, I think, or seven. Yeah, was it 7 weeks?
7 weeks, yes.
Yeah, a little kind of like an accelerator course. So couples typically are like a niche. It's not a requirement, but we consider it to be like a small family business. So then it is tailored more towards a couple because we have like those strengths and weaknesses. Ideally, they're complementary to each other. That's how we opposites attract sometimes. Um, so yeah, that's entry level. Maybe you have something started and want to continue to grow and scale. And I focus on like the finance side of it, and Jamie often focuses on like the operations and marketing side of it.
Awesome. I want to talk to you about that for a second about doing this type of education with your spouse or attending conferences with your spouse. So, Dave and I were both in Vegas, and you and Jamie were both in Vegas. And I think that
hmm
as much as we can fit that with the kids' schedules and other commitments, we try to attend things together, but sometimes we can't. So, yeah, how have you guys found that balance of trying to, juggle parenthood, being home, but then you guys both getting to be in these places at the same time or consuming the same information?
It's like a blessing and a curse, the whole COVID time frame where we went to work remote and schools were challenged. And we decided like we're just going to go for an online school type environment. And so we discovered opportunity there and really evaluated it, just like really anything that we do. It's what's the pros, what's the cons, what's the best case, worst case, and most likely situation or scenario that we're going to come up with. And so that was number one to figuring out how to become more mobile and to work across multiple states and pursue the e-learning environment or the remote learning or the alternative learning options that we have compared to like the traditional school and through certification and professional development, not just like for kids, for adults, because I think we're in this technology age where stuff changes so frequently, we have to evolve as well. So step one, figure out how to become more portable, and that was eliminate the structured in-person curriculum for our kids. Um, we then were traveling between three different states, Nebraska, Arizona, and Colorado, and that it just was easy to book the conference or the retreat or the seminar that we wanted to go to, and then to be able to go there together. Uh, Definitely had some strengths, but places like A Date with Destiny, they actually encourage that you separate and go work with others and then kind of come back and learn this stuff. So if we don't attend together, we do make every effort to kind of go through the same thing, just at different times. And one of us maybe has to take care of the kid situation or uh, lean on the parents.
Oh, your parents. Yeah, I do that a
Yeah.
lot too. My mom was helping watch the kids all week when Dave and I were at a conference, so I totally can relate to that.
Yeah, it's tough, but and there's this anxiety that builds up, but then once we get there, it's full immersion. Do our best to shut it off. I have the do not disturb, and then you can edit the contacts that can get through the do not disturb. That's the kids or the caretaker. And then I know if there is an alert, it's actually important.
Mhm.
Um, that's a huge component, especially if you are going and seeking education. Just a little plug is put the darn thing down when you're there because we get distracted and we miss a whole component of a talk that was instrumental to even gaining the information that we should have gained on whatever's left remaining of that conversation when you tune back in.
That's such a good point. I didn't even start utilizing the do not disturb setting on my phone till only a few this past year, maybe last few months, and I didn't realize how detrimental it was that I wasn't using it, and then how
Right?
powerful it can be when I do use it. So I have a personal setting for the daytime that limits most apps and it does allow all text messages, so I should probably filter that even more to who, and then do not disturb is just flat out everything. And
Yeah.
it's been so powerful, and I always thought it was interesting when I'd text a friend and it would say they have notifications silenced right now. I'm like, "Huh, why? It's only 7 o'clock." And now I get it so much more. Some people have it on 24/7. And I agree with you, just allowing the caretaker of who's at that hour to be allowed in is most important. Just even for this call, I did do not disturb, but I want to make sure that I get any messages as appropriate from there. But it's we just live in such a easily distracted world that you have to really put effort in to have that peace and that focus now.
Right. And it's because of the instant gratification mindset that we've all adopted thanks to Amazon. It's like I'm here in Arizona and I can get something right away if I really want to. Nebraska, Colorado, maybe a little bit harder depending on the location, but it's next day typically that something's sitting on the doorstep that I thought of needing that night or the night prior. And so as service providers, potentially, or even, I mean, especially in the short-term rental space, you're ranked or graded based on your response times. And so we have this anxiety over, oh, I have to, and then our awareness, our presence is there versus where it should be, the relationship, the parenting, whatever the case may be, the work, um, and it actually like diminishes the value in any one thing. We're just like moderate in everything because we're focused on something that's not even there yet, the
Mhm.
future.
No, it's so true. It's so true. Well, I want to jump into the topic at hand, which was a post I saw you do a couple weeks ago about personal finances. And I'll let you go into some of your background. I know you've shared with me your early journey of credit scores and learning from some mistakes and how you've totally turned that around into a multi million dollar, net worth and built largely in real estate with you and your wife. So, and I'd love to walk through the steps that you laid out on how especially couples can work together on personal finances and a topic that's really tricky, can be very anxiety producing. There's a lot of fear around this. There can be a lot of shame wrapped up into this. And I think that what your post was so powerful. It was also sad where you said you are often brought in to help couples consult as they go through a divorce and how to divvy up assets. And so here's are some helpful tools before you get to that dire place in your relationship, in your relationship with money and your relationship with your partner. So yeah, we'll want to start at the beginning of where your personal finance journey began.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Um, I think anytime we grow up in a humble setting, I was kind of like a lower middle class, south side of Chicago, union family. And so no was a common answer that you got when you wanted something. And I think my desire for things was greater. bicycles, whatever. I was just an adventurous kid, so it was always something that was kind of expensive. Snowboards, BMX bikes, and the things that go along with it. So that desire and having to hear no um, created a drive in me, and then I carried that through to being a parent, and which was the ultimate catalyst to like getting the shit together. Excuse my language. But I didn't want to have to say no, or I like wanted to be able to say yes if I thought it was appropriate. And so, um, really, really early on, to like, let's just say high school, I was like, how am I going to get in a position where I'm in control of my spending or being able to acquire the things that I want to acquire? And then first decision was, do I go to college or do I go into the army? There was multiple reasons to go into the army, but one of those driving factors was I can go to school and acquire all this debt and then wonder if I'm going to get a job, or I can go get paid, get the experience, learn a real craft, and then come out of it with an opportunity to get to work. Um, my goal was to be in computers. Anyways, ended up in Afghanistan, did this whole ignore everything kind of a mindset where I had these bills, but I'm like, I'm in Afghanistan. I'm fighting for our country. Why should I have to go pay my bills? So I like let it roll. Worst decision ever because, well, it depends how you look at it. It was the worst decision then. I should have just known the right thing to do, but it was an amazing decision because of what I learned as a result of making the wrong choice. And so I got back terrible credit. And then, of course, the one thing my mom encourages me to do is go get into mortgage. So help people with their finances to go buy the biggest investment they typically buy with the biggest singular debt they likely have. Um, and I was completely underqualified for it. But I took it as an opportunity, like, I get to see behind the curtain. I get to gather a lot of data and not only help somebody with figuring out what they can do based on banking standards, but I can also absorb this information and make good informed decisions that a lot of other people don't have the opportunity to do. Look at hundreds of people's tax returns on an annual basis. So, didn't mean I took it seriously right away. It took me a solid, I would say, 10 years before I took it seriously. And like I said, the catalyst was turning into a dad. Like now I have to be responsible for more than just my own life. And for some reason, we take that more seriously, right? We know how to help give somebody else advice more than we can take our own advice sometimes because of that perspective. So, um, literally went from very negative net worth to well into seven-figure net worth, creating as much as $5 million, I'd say, a year in gross revenues across multiple companies. And when I picked my head up, because I kept it down, and there's a reason that they have blinders on the horse. Like it's about focus. Literally posted just a quick one yesterday that said like the outcomes are a direct correlation to the level of your focus. Um, so I picked my head up and I was like, I don't even know how I got here. I don't know how we did this. And so then you have to reverse engineer it and document processes. And one of the best ways to learn is to teach others. And so that's how the evolution of like teaching people, I'm like, oh, now I actually understand by talking through it with somebody privately, how we came to do that. And so it's all about documenting these days for me, establishing standard principles, practices, procedures to get things done, remain efficient, eliminate decision fatigue. And go on and on.
I love that. You covered a lot, and I love some of these nuggets too, where you said there's a reason there are blinders on a horse. It's because of focus. And I love that because that's exactly what you did to get from where you were. And remind me again, you said, I think you said your credit score was maybe in the 500s when you were not paying
Oh, for
bills.
sure in the 400s.
400s. Yeah.
And that's a hard, like, you have to work to do that. Not work to get, clearly you're not working maybe to pay the bills, but um, like, you really have to go out of your way to, I think, achieve a score that low and just be stubborn as hell and just not pay things. So yeah, it was horribly low. I got denied when I wanted to buy a house, and for me, I felt like a hypocrite, right? I was a lender for 10 years before I even bought my first piece of real estate. So that gave me an incredible level of motivation to do it because at that point I was not practicing what I preached, which is buy real estate, and probably why I got so obsessive with it. And within 10 years from the first purchase, I've got over 100 transactions under my own belt. So um, I had a lot of catch up. I would say I was a slow learner.
But I also see such a humility that this lesson taught you, and then also how much you accelerated your learning. So people can buy a house, at 23 and still not have that crazy, up and to the right graph that you have from that 10-year stint of, you said 100 transactions of, I think, real estate and also businesses. Is that right?
Yeah, I have a few businesses in and through, whether it's through real estate or ancillary services. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, that's incredible. All right, I'd love to go into the tips that you laid out on that post a couple weeks ago, and what you recommended. You said communication was one of the keys. You want to talk about that a bit more?
Yeah, I actually think that the communication is the actual problem versus the finances themselves. I was just with a great group of people, and a common theme was alignment. And much of the power I think we derive in our professional life comes from the synergy in our personal life. Because it's same, and it goes both ways potentially, but it's like if I am being beat up and exhausted through my day-to-day activities on my ordinary income, whatever my job is, you bring that home with you. And same goes for if you're at home and you're drained, you bring that energy into the office as well. And some people work from home. Uh, and so for me, I actually had that moment in 2009, 2010, sorry, where I was crazy, right? It's 2010. It's coming out of the terrible times of real estate. And then home life was crazy too. And one of the first things I identified was if you have two achiever type mindsets in the household, there becomes like a competitive nature within there. And sometimes it's not always friendly competition. It's, oh, I took care of the kids and you were able to go work. And if they derive some significance from that, then they want the return. Like, you watch the kids so I can go and pursue my own individual goals. And if that's unmet and it's not talked about, then we become selfish or ignorant to what the other person needs. So, um, hence the reason I say communication being number one, which then to like directly quote Alec Cheplack, who's a great leader in all capacities, but he focuses a lot on health, physical, but there's just that mental component that comes with it. And he says there's like three states: one, complete alignment, where you're empowered to be as successful as possible. You know each other's visions, you're aligned in those visions, and there's an inherent trust. One of the most difficult things that I see is a very confident uh, individual, husband, wife, whomever, has a goal and has the potential, but then is unsupported in that goal. If you don't ever get that right, then neither party is going to get what they want. And if we believed in and bought into this thing, this concept of the partnership, the marriage, we should believe that everything that's required of that other person and is within them, right? They believe in themselves, they're confident. I believe in them. So basically, if Jamie wants to buy something and she believes that it's a good project, I may have my opinion. I will share my opinion, but it always ends with, if you see the vision and you believe in it, I'll support it. So, um, which is potentially contrarian to those that say, I think we both need to weigh in the decision, and then somehow there's some equalization that helps determine whether it's going to be yes or no. Like, where's the intermediary? Who's the intermediary? And it's a shame because, as I mentioned in the post, it's always retroactive. There's more communication that goes on in the year or two that it takes to get divorced than there was in the whole prior 10 years, because it was focused again on a certain outcome. Whereas if we just made a focus on the certain outcome while we were in it, we'd probably be better off for it. Um, and I'm not saying anything's perfect. We're still go through challenges, but um, at the end of the day, it's like it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't, I think is one of those statements. So we look at it as like a workout. You have to push, go through pain, get to a point of muscle fatigue in order to grow. And
Mm.
so all these challenges, if I just say I'm going to throw them out the door and go try to start over, why am I going to succeed there by chance? Like, and that goes to the whole external versus internal as your source of energy, or your source of the confidence that we need. Some of us just seek it on the outside too much, and that's the problem, right? The wife wants to get into real estate investing, and the husband's conservative and thinks that the market is going to control their wife's outcome. It's not necessarily true, right? We've started businesses, bought properties, all during what some people sitting on the sidelines scared, saying interest rates suck, and they're still somebody's succeeding. The difference is the person. That answer your question?
In a lot of different ways it did. There's just so much I want to unpack now.
Let's do it. Keep it going.
All right. Well, I want to tie one of your points back to the very beginning where you said you came from a culture of hearing no when you wanted things. And I think that everyone can relate to that to some extent. And I think what you talked about was desire. And I relate to this where Dave and I moved into, I'd say, our dream home 6 months ago. Again, interest rates are bad, bad time to buy. We bought in the late fall, winter in Massachusetts, which is also not a great time, but it was a deal actually. You'd be proud. We'll show you the numbers later. But so I
Nice.
think that that desire and that creates habits, I think that and I think you talked about this in the post where you could be a spender or a saver. And I think desire, and if that you were used to desires getting extinguished and not getting them satisfied, then when you start to be an adult and have money, or you don't have money, but you have credit lines, then you might have this over tendency to indulge because you wanted those desires and it makes you feel good. But then there's the consequences on the other end of how are you going to cover that payment or pay it off eventually. And so yeah, anything that you want to add to that?
No, you nailed it as far as catching that, because I saw that in it and I didn't articulate it, but I my first debt that I got, I was blown away because I was just drooling over motorcycles as a 17-year-old, I think it was. And I didn't even think I could enter into debt legally. And I stopped in between jobs in my summer between my junior and senior year, and shopped for a motorcycle. And they're like, well, let's just run your credit. And sure enough, I guess I had some, and they were able to give me like a $5,000 loan and I don't even know if I paid that one off or not, but then just seeing how easy that was to get that debt without any foundation and with a summer job at that, I was gonna go back to high school. I wasn't really working. I was gonna go do my senior year of high school, and so I had this bike, and then it was just realizing how easy it was to get debt and not knowing how I was gonna pay for it is probably how I got myself into that situation.
Yeah, yeah. And I think people do that of all forms and flavors, whether it's like the bike, the car, a house, clothes, a vacation that they put 100% on credit. I think that a lot of people can relate to that. One quick side note I want to go into is, didn't you used to race bikes, right? Too. I thought that that was part of your past too, even as a profession.
Stunt riding, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy enough. Nice little stint in Vegas where I was thought I might develop a stunt rider career if I didn't end up taking the dad route. I might have. I was like researching how to take it to the next level. So it was all live performance stuff, and I was hoping to get into the film side of it. And right there is when it was a fork in a road, and I made the more responsible decision, to say the least.
A different kind of adventure. Wait, can you
Exactly.
explain one of the craziest stunts you've ever done? Pretend I'm like my 5-year-old son. How would you explain one of the craziest stunts you've ever done?
Oh, I can explain the one that I'd say was the biggest crowd pleaser. And so for context, I wasn't the freestyle motocross guy. I was a freestyle street bike stunt rider. So the big 600 cc um, crotch rocket motorcycles that you see doing wheelies on the street, we did it in a controlled setting and perfected the craft. So it was very precision oriented, but the crowd favorite, I would like do some sort of a pass that was like a wheelie of some nature, and then come in nice and fast. And then you throw the bike into neutral, put the kickstand down, slam on the brakes so it kind of skids. And then we modify the bikes to have a rear brake with a lever, so you can pull it from your hand or you can hit it from your foot. So there's two controls that give you a rear brake, and so you'd have to finish it by holding the rear brake with your hand, and that momentum would force my body to fly over the handlebars, and I would do like a flip, and the bike would, if I timed it right, come to almost a complete stop while my body's momentum is going forward. It'd just fall over onto the kickstand and stay standing up, and I would just like run. So that was like the end to get the crowd nice and jazzed up.
And where did you land? Would you land on the ground next to the butt?
Of in front of it.
You then in front of it, okay.
So I'm on the bike, it comes to a screeching halt. I like mousetrap off, do a somersault, land on my feet, and
Wow.
just get the crowd roaring. I
Wow.
got
Okay,
a
we'll have to find if
nice
there's a video deep in the archives of you doing this.
I do have that. I do have that. I'll tag you on Facebook after
Yes, please
this
do.
is
Maybe we
over.
can link it to the show notes or something. All right, I'm
There
really
you
glad we
go.
went on that sidebar because I just was dying to bring that up on this call.
Oh my
All right,
gosh.
let's go through the list of tips that you had here, but one by one, because I think these are really valuable and took a lot of thoughtfulness went into this. So let's go from the top here. So schedule regular money talks. Let's hear.
So one of the I'm making sure I have that list in front of me, but the there's we all have strengths and weaknesses, and we look at things with a different set of experiences. And so not only sharing what your goals are, but sharing why you see something the way you see it is really important. It's just like the why behind the effort that we put in the workplace. Understanding why you feel that way. If it is tied to something your parents did, and it gives you this sense of uncertainty that you can't sleep at night. Like the last thing I want to do is steal that peace from my significant other or anybody I care about for that matter. So that would be a regular money talk where it's not just about the decision, the item, the quantity or dollar amount. It's the buying, the psychology behind the buying or the investing that you want to do. And that's why I encourage the learning to take place together. Just if you take it and break it down to me as a loan officer, take me to the lowest level task that I do, which is have a conversation with somebody who has a goal of buying something. If they're by themselves, I start to get concerned if they have somebody else in their life, because typically it's a young person who's getting influence from their parents. I almost require, but I can't require it. I just encourage that their family who is helping them in the influence of the decision be with them so that our vision is aligned, our risk tolerance is under uncovered. Like some of our older generation believe that you shouldn't do it unless you have the 20% down. But that's because of their past experience. They haven't had a mortgage in 10 years. So we have to figure out the principles behind the decision making and what the opportunity and the risks are.
I like that you brought up psychology because people make decisions based on emotion. No matter how
Mm.
much logic or anything else you put in there to try to influence the decision, I hear more often than not the knee jerk reaction will go to emotional. Is that what you found?
It goes kind of into the stuff that we study in the subconscious.
Mhm.
It's scary that people don't even realize that as an educated salesperson can get them to make the decision that the salesperson wants them to make if they can recognize the patterns in the subconscious programming that they have.
Mhm.
And so, yes, 150%, it's tying the emotion into it, which tends to lead to potentially a bad decision if they're not conditioning their mind and emotionally intelligent.
Yeah, that makes sense. So tying this back to those regular money talks, you're saying set up a cadence of some sort to discuss income, expenses, goals, but the vision and the goals are really pivotal because it really drives everything else. Is that what I'm hearing?
It does. And the philosophy that they put behind it. Like I'm a very risk tolerant investor. And it's only because the level of focus that I put in on any individual transaction or opportunity, and I've already kind of have an idea of what's the worst case scenario. I can't assume that everybody else is going to do that. So I need to share that, which then helps potentially create relief to anybody that I would create anxiety for
Mhm.
in making that decision to move forward on a investment, a purchase. Because hopefully they're talking about investments. In the beginning, yes, like we had the envelope system where you wrote down this is the grocery budget, and when this money's gone, the physical cash in an envelope, we don't buy anymore. We figure it out. And unfortunately, we have to back ourselves into a corner when the resources are limited in order to get our minds opened up to other potential opportunities or other ways. It's easy to say that you can't do this, but it's better to say, how can I?
Mhm. Absolutely. All right. So next one, I think relates to this, but setting a shared financial goal or shared financial goals, I should say.
So that gets with, I think transparency is in there.
Mhm.
Um, I would tie that into this, or it's at least a subcategory of it, because it's vulnerable. It's scary. We're worried constantly of being judged, right? We don't want to put the phone on do not disturb because we don't want somebody to think that we don't care about them or that we're lazy and they don't know that we're maybe doing something that's going to benefit them. We deserve 24 hours, in my opinion, to get back to people, but um, it all depends on the value that we give. Anyways, so usually step one is how do we get out of this debt? We're irresponsible individuals at first, potentially. Um, I don't know. I don't see too many perfect people. And so it's how do we dig out of a hole? And coming up with a plan to say, we have 5 accounts. Which one should we pay off first? And why? Uh, She wants hers paid off, he wants his paid off, whatever the case may be. Which one and why? And it's not always the highest interest rate, it's not always the highest payment. It's sometimes it's the lowest balance again, just so we can get a win under our belt. I have my own philosophy. I share it to whomever has the goal of eliminating debt, and then come up with the plan to get all the way done. It's not going to be perfect, and don't spend more time on that than actually going out and working and earning the income that's required to pay it off. But try to get it all the way to the end so you can see, okay, here's what it could look like, here's how long it could take, and now we have something to look forward to. Some people need to run towards the compelling future. Some people need to run away from something that scares the shit out of them. But I'm a compelling future guy. Show me what it's going to look like. Show me why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm more likely to get there. Back in the day, I used to just run from the cops.
Hopefully, you're running from no one now.
Yeah, yeah,
Changed a
exactly.
little bit since those days. I like this because I also think you're right. Different things drive different people, and even drive the same person at different times. And I even last night, I spent a few hours after I finished my conference before I'd gone home this morning to work on a lot of different things. You'd be so proud of me. I was going through taxes, writing checks for that. I was running through our net worth, our debt, our my goals for some the balances of certain investment accounts, saving accounts, etc. And I think I find that when I look at that almost daily, I make so much more progress on those things
Oh my
than when
gosh,
I look
yeah.
at them more sporadically or don't even want to touch it for months. We've had some, interesting ups and downs. All I'd say a lot of it planned. We were moving into this house and we renovated the other house, putting a lot of money into it for a new renovated kitchen. It was a original kitchen from 1966. Bathroom also needed to be renovated, and we just thought it was worth it to put it on the market. And also for pride, because we're in the real estate space, we didn't want to put a shoddy product on the market and have it be judged as a representation of us and our name in real estate. And we made all that money back and then some, and so we're in a good place. But it's interesting when your back is against the wall, you just have this different perspective. And just being in the spaces we're in, life is just so much more of a roller coaster than it
Yep.
is when you're just in the standard 9 to 5 job, get the 30-year mortgage when you're hopefully in your 20s, maybe move one more time, have a traditional 401k, just very, not vanilla, boring. I think a lot of people do that and like it, but there's highs and lows and there's peaks and valleys. And sometimes I'll have these conversations with my friends that their back is against their back is against a wall. And I said, yes, it can be hard, but this is also the beauty of being in this space, is because it is more exciting and fun and there is more upside. There's also downside, and you're going to have down times, and hopefully you have the right people in your corner and the right skills to help you course correct and get out of those tough times with the right tools, the right sequencing of deploying those tools. But it's more of a roller coaster, and if you're not ready for that, that's totally fine. You don't ever have to sign up for the roller coaster, especially yours. It sounds like a little bit bigger. You guys are a little bit further along than Dave and I are, but I think that it was a really fun meeting with myself. And Dave and I are meeting more regularly, which has also been really helpful and nice in this. But I find huge, huge parallels when I don't do that personally. We don't do that together, and how awry we get off of those, and how much more scary and overwhelming it can be when we do finally meet to talk about finances.
Oh yeah. More to cover, more to bite off and chew.
Mhm.
Um, it's so funny you say that too, because one, it gets really easy to try to ignore or not log in because you know that it's not looking how you want it to look.
Mhm.
And it's actually the absolute opposite of what needs done. I finally got in probably 2010 to 12, I don't know, somewhere in that time frame got really serious. And I was like, I just need to face this. It's the buffalo running into the storm mentality. I print off and I had like different color markers or highlighters, and I just start going through and categorizing it and then manually adding it up before we had all the cool tools and technology that we have today. But and then you can just see like where did I really need to make that many purchases at the gas station? That was like my number one area of improvement because I'd buy the snack and the energy drink and whatever else going into the convenience store. So, um, by looking at the data, you have informed decisions. You're not guessing. Um, and then if you have somebody else in the mastermind to help make those decisions, it's huge. And to your point, I have a small circle that like speak the same language, and we talk about it being like underwater or holding your breath. And there's just these periods of times, especially as an investor in real estate space, you're holding your breath and you learn to hold your breath longer. And when you come up for air, it's usually more enjoyable for a longer period of time. So when you're renovating and investing and in this big acquisition phase, and then you divest from something or it actually pays off, you're like, wow, checks keep getting bigger.
Yeah, it's such a good point. We had 2 of those. We sold a short-term rental in Maine that we had for a couple of years, and, I won't go into the detail, but it wasn't working out for a few reasons, and so we sold that, and it was really cool to see that big check come in, you pay off some investments you made into that property, and then to have that overflow and then have it again, and it can be addicting. I know you guys did a lot of flips, and that's why the Flipping Flanagans is one of I think is your maybe your holding company name, but
Yep.
I get that, and that high can be good. It can be scary when you might not have a lot of cash on hand that you're used to and stuff, but it can also be really fun and rewarding. And so
So
just
true.
balancing that because that dopamine hit that we've talked about from Amazon to instant gratification, all these mint apps and everything that make everything so easy and convenient. It can be a little bit addicting. So being aware of that and balancing that and having people to help keep you in check is really good.
Shameless little like warning or plug is just watch out because those a lot of those apps for anybody who has them, we're not I'm not endorsing them. Uh, they're good for certain purposes, but they're actually lead aggregation sources. So they're selling your information, learning the activities. That's why Credit Karma has a lot of fine print to it. They are watching your buying behavior and they're putting strategic advertising in front of people. So just be careful if you are listening and you're going into the app tech space with your financial finances.
Oh, that is so fascinating. I hadn't thought of the back end side of that business model. That's super interesting. SoFi is creating a mint aggregator app right now with your net worth and are asking if you do you want to link other accounts here? Do you want to link your credit card here and this and that? But I never thought about them selling the advertising dollars on the other side of it. That's
Oh
fascinating.
yeah.
Just learned
Yeah.
something new. I should have figured that out. I've been in digital advertising for a while now. All right, I wanna make sure I'm respectful of your time. I know, you had a long day at your conference yesterday, and
No, we're
I'm
good.
somewhat on time. So, I'll kind of tick through the headlines of each of these, and we can jump into anyone that stands out to you. So, creating a joint budget, we had talked about that envelope concept here. Dividing responsibilities, who handles which financial tasks, paying bills, investing, tracking spending, avoiding confusion. I think this is really good even for specific acute projects too. I was explaining to you that we have a lovely leak in our house and have 3 floors getting ripped apart by Serpro. And even who was taking the lead on that, because Dave took the lead contacting an insurance adjuster to represent us. And I had contacted our insurance agency to give them a heads up. And we were stepping on toes and it was all my fault. And he said, "Hey, do you want me to lead or do you want to run with this?" And I said, "Sorry, you can run with it. I will step away." And I think that you just need to be aware of that, even who is leading on reviewing some taxes. We had some write-offs that weren't accurate from when I checked it. And I said, "I'll take the lead on that." And I think we just have gotten better. We were not great at that at times. And then you either stepping on each other's toes or it just doesn't get done and you're stressed and there's just a little bit more of a chaos to it versus having it be very synchronized.
Mhm. It's usually either somebody desires to have the control or they don't want to let the other person down. So it's like either just give yourself permission or ask for it if you feel like you need it, but we don't need it. It's where is the strength? So I'm similar in that scenario. Like I'd have been Dave, I'll work with the insurance company, I'll work with the bank, I'll work with whomever on the back of the house side, and then you work with the contractors directly.
Mhm.
Like you account for and get their invoice and check their work, and now we know what our lanes, and we try not to cross into one another's lane when it comes down to it.
You know what I like about this too, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, is that trust component. And I think that it can be challenging where it some of that fear and control for me as a recovering perfectionist can be, oh, well, what if it gets done wrong? Or we sequence things incorrectly and our insurance adjuster's like, nope, you shouldn't have ripped down that ceiling. We're not going to cover replacing it. And so I think that that fear is something that I've worked on a lot in this mindset work we've both been a part of. But I think that assuming good intent and trusting that person, and if something does go wrong, handling it together, or they're saying, hey, I will take the responsibility and I will work through whatever consequences happen, especially if it's a full blown business that I'm not a part of. I think that that's also really important. Just like you said at the beginning, you need to be able to see if someone can see and believe in their vision, then you will support them. And I think that that's a scary leap of faith, even for very strong couples.
Hmm. Oh my gosh. And think of how much more motivation you have when Dave comes and says, I fully support you in this endeavor, even if he doesn't believe it. And then if you've pitched him and he sold on it, great. You even have that momentum too. But the onus is on both parties. One, on the party who's committing to something and they need to follow through with what they say they're going to do. And the other spouse probably knows if there's a track record of them doing what they say they're going to do, but we all deserve that opportunity to show up. If we hadn't, even if we hadn't in the past, let's make sure we just talk about why you didn't last time and why it's going to work this time. On the other side, if you make a decision, like stick to it.
Mhm.
Don't say you don't care. Say what you mean and mean what you say is like a rule that we have. And if you say yes, I don't care if you go out tonight, or yes, I don't care if you go to that conference. I'll take care of the dog, the kids, and all the things. When I come back, I don't need to get shit because I went because I got permission explicitly. I didn't just say peace out, I'm leaving. We discussed it. Is this going to work for our schedule? And so catch on to little catchphrases. Say what you mean what you say. There's a couple more. Maybe I'll try to drop those in.
I like that, and I've talked about that this week with some friends. I call there's can be a resentment trap that can happen with that. If you can't accept someone's answer at face value, yes, it is okay if you go to that conference, or it's okay if you go out with your friends on Thursday. And I think that what a pattern Dave and I have been on in the past sometimes was I say yes and it wasn't okay, or vice versa. And so now we can accept what we say if it's a yes or a no at face value, and so that undertone of resentment isn't there when you say what you mean and mean what you say. That's a different phrasing for the same concept that we've also started to embrace. And it just made it a lot easier. You're not trying to read between the lines with each other.
Well, you're constantly confused then, because if you sometimes mean it and sometimes you don't, and you're just saying it because of how the other person's gonna feel, we got to be more willing to, I don't know, have confidence in ourselves. One, to say, no, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna have anxiety over this, that, or the other thing, or it causes me frustration. How do we solve it? Like, let's just tackle it straight on, and we're not misguided, misdirected, making the wrong decision based on bad information.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
I want to go back to a point you made about someone believing in an investment and maybe the other person doesn't agree with it. Here's an example that Dave and I went through with our house in Maine. Was we had a short-term rental in Cape Cod. It was our first one. We still have it. It's our baby. I said we're going to die with that little 500 square foot house in our names, in our trust. I should say,
Nice.
not our names, our trust. And when we went to go after a house in Maine, we were using HELOC money, And it definitely stretched me. I said, Maine's a different beast. More there's more unknowns. There's a private well. We're on a mountain. You have more remote neighbors. We have bears up there. There's snow removal. Then we needed to install a generator so that the hot tub, if we lose power, which is very common when you're in the middle of the woods with
Wow.
snowstorms and stuff. So we got a hot tub, and they said, hey, your hot tub might break if you don't have a generator. So we had to get a generator. So there's all these unknowns. And so Dave was definitely more go getter about this. He would run the numbers, and he looked like a good investment. And I was nervous, but we still did it, and I was supportive, but I was still scared. And I think that's something I'm working on. I'm definitely more the fear person. And I think that's a leap of faith for Dave, because you can believe in it but still be scared of making a mistake. And then is it all on you if you do make a misstep, or things change in the more macro market, or in a micro way, that make it a more challenging investment? And I think you might have an original plan. We're going to hold this forever. And that can change with new information. We had 2 years of renting under our belt, and we said it was interesting, where we had a pivotal point where we were going to do a cost segregation study for a prior year. We had done our material participation log. Sorry, I'm getting a little technical for anyone who's not into real estate. A lot of people know this and ad nauseum, and then some this is new, but we can go into it in a different podcast. But we had done our material participation log. I had gone through Apple Photos, Slack messages, everything, to make sure I had evidence where we were, when, how long we spent on things. Yeah, I'm very detailed like that. And he was dragging his feet scheduling the cost seg study with a engineer, I think. And I said, hey, that's not like you. What's going on? And he said, I'm really nervous about the next rental year. And I think we might want to consider selling. And thank God he stopped, and we had an honest conversation. And it's hard to, don't say I made a mistake. I thought we'd hold this for the next 30 years, and we held it for two. But I give him major props for not just proceeding with this death march of, oh, now we do a cost seg study and we get that big tax, a bonus from this. It sold well, and we're very glad that I said that money we were able to deploy to pay off some of the investments we had done into that house, and help unlock some capital to be able to buy our new primary. I think it's good. Plans can change. You can have new information. You can make mistakes, and to take those with grace. And I think if you're in either seat, I think admitting, hey, this isn't looking good. It's not looking as good as I forecasted 2 years ago, is okay. It's all about learning and failing forward in real estate investing, especially when you're early. And I think
Right.
that can be a beautiful lesson made there. And so I think that is just a good example where I think it touched on a lot of different points you made here today.
Gosh, that's so huge. Where you talk about failing forward too, and it's just yes, even if you maybe if they're just so passionate about it, it's worth it to let them experience it, even if it doesn't become the optimal outcome that we'd hoped for, because then the trust that was established there and the learning, it's even with my kids. I'll let them do something because they're going to learn the lesson eventually,
Mhm.
right? If he's gonna make the eggs and screw the eggs up, at least he'll learn so that next time he'll actually make better eggs. If I stop him from doing it, he's just one would probably have the conflict, and two, he won't learn the lesson he needed to learn. So I prolonged it. I actually held them back if I didn't let them make the decision that they need to make. And then, like I said, the trust that's established along the way, it's like I would never, I'd rather let her buy something that didn't become a good investment and know that that she was supported, and then the appreciation that would come from that. It's just like it's this good little cycle, more so than, hey, no, don't make that decision. I think you're gonna fail, and then let the seed of resentment get planted because they never got to accomplish their full goal, that job, whatever the case may be. This is not real estate specific. This is just universal
Mhm.
relationship, communication, trust type stuff.
Yeah. And I think about kids too, you're infusing them with anxiety into their paradigm when you create all this fear of missteps, even as small
Mm,
as making eggs, as big as not going to college, maybe they just choose not to do, or they buy their first real investment property. I think that that's something I'm keenly aware of because I come from warriors, is you're infusing a wave of anxiety over them, and that's going to become that is part of their paradigm. And so how do you be cognizant of that and let them take the appropriate steps at the appropriate times? I think you said your kid is 10, and yeah, I think an ample time to be learning how to use the stovetop or the oven. And it can be scary, but it's appropriate, and they're going to learn faster if you let them learn from, they're doing it themselves instead of hovering over them, giving them step-by-step instructions on it, all of that.
Love it. Yep.
All right. So I'm sorry I'm taking so long to tick through
Do
these.
not
So
apologize. I believe in it being unapologetic. So
yeah.
when this stuff is what energizes me. I think that the standard education system does a terrible job of fiscal literacy. So you have a huge heart, and it's been too long since we've all connected, and hopefully we'll find a way to keep it happening more often.
Yeah, absolutely. The last few you had here were being honest about debt and income,
Mm,
using yours, mine, and our systems. Respect spending differences. People will have a different personality, like a spender versus a saver, and I'll go through seasons of both of those. So it's not that it's fixed, a fixed type of personality. And then working with a financial mentor, I think that's another big one too. Where Dave and I have worked with financial advisors in the past, and they've helped us just mature with getting things like a living trust, guardianship, all of those types of adult paper, a will. Now that we have kids, especially, we needed to mature in having those things buttoned up, and it was nice to have a third party tell us that to go get life insurance. I thought, oh, I have a policy with my employer, so I'm fine. No, 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 you should get your own outside of that to help cover X, Y, and Z. And I just didn't have anyone to teach me that until we had a financial advisor to do that. And sometimes, and you level up on those too. So I think just start with someone who's trusted, or a referral, and then you might outgrow them and or they might retire, like something that happened with us. And so I think that that's a really good piece of advice, because you have that third party, like you said, to maybe help you rectify any conflict or difference of opinions, and helping someone give you a third party opinion, or something that's totally not on either of your radar, which is what the case was for us.
yeah, and I was strategic in not saying advisor in there, like
Mm.
mentor, because there's a lot of insurance salesmen, for example, cloaked in the advisor title. So somebody who's been where you want to be, or has demonstrated good fiscal literacy and responsibility, uh, to help, yes, give some insights or be the mediator when a decision you guys can't come to mutually is in front of you. Um, and they should be teaching more practice or procedure or philosophy than just telling you to do one specific thing, because there's a million different ways to accomplish the same goal. Um, what were a couple of the other ones that you said? The
Being
last
honest,
three.
about
Uh,
debt and income, yours, mine, ours, and respect
oh,
spending
yours, mine, and
differences.
ours. Okay. Um, yours, mine, and ours is a different philosophy than maybe some who are like, yeah, we just need to put it all into one thing. Like, I still have my own account. That's where the money comes in that I generate, and she has her own account, and that's where the money she brings in comes, and then it's distributed from there. Because depending on your business, we can be like our own little cost centers. So I try to segregate everything, the business account and the personal account and all the different sources of revenue. And then, so your joint account would be for shared expenses. And then I'm not logging in and seeing some Lululemon stuff or whatever. Like, then there's no questions that need to get asked. I don't want to even get to into those details. It doesn't serve you. I need that side. Sorry. I was running out of battery, so I called in reinforcements.
No
Um,
problem.
so the goal is not to think something is hiding or to try to control somebody else's spending. There's a
That's okay. We have editors.
Thanks, James. Um, so my goal is to be trusted because I've demonstrated good fiscal responsibility and I have discretion over the funds that I want to spend, and I could make an investment without decision. She's gotten phone calls from the bank saying, "I need your code to authorize this wire." She's like, "Wire for what?" "Oh, for I don't know. We're wiring to the title company for the house you're buying. We're buying a house." And it's like, I told you, but I probably said it in passing, and it's this one-off deal that we're doing this one thing and it's supposed to work. Okay. All right. Next time tell me, or next time make sure I know. Okay. Um, I'm saying that takes a long time to get to that point of like alignment where you could buy a house without permission. Um, sounds so crazy. And it's not fundamental to kind of what we're talking about, but imagine that you can get there if you follow these to where you plant or instill that level of confidence in each other in what you're doing. I don't care about the expensive personal item that's a complete indulgence, and I don't care about the item that's the huge investment because we've had enough conversations in the middle that I trust your investment or your spending philosophy. And if it's going to be the thing that makes you work harder or to go get the money that's needed to buy the nice house and the nice clothes or invest it for the future, we just are on, you get up to that level um, over time. And when you're honest about it, like I didn't want to talk about the bills that weren't paid when we first met. That was a
Mhm.
very difficult conversation. But if we didn't create the joint spreadsheet that we made, which also didn't make me feel so bad either at the end of the day. Like, if I could have eliminated the probably months of uncertainty and anxiety over what if they find out about the fact that I haven't paid this car bill and I have this voluntary repossession on my credit, like, and there's still an $8,000 balance or whatever it was. That was if you saw the subsequent post where I said I still remember the phone call to my mom. Like, that was a real phone call. I had to say, "Mom, I have to get this paid off, otherwise I can't keep my mortgage license." And fortunately, we were able to negotiate it down and settle for less than full balance, but I was able to get it done. Um, Having the conversation sooner would have eliminated a bunch of anxieties, ultimately, what I was trying to share. And so, if that's encouraging to anybody who's sitting on the sidelines, like holding all that in, it's not helping. It's creating more stress, which in fact impacts us emotionally and physically. And it's the binding stuff that compounds more negative if we don't go and bring it out and talk about it and figure out how to hit it face on or come at it straight on, run into the storm. It'll be over faster than if we run away from it while it's chasing us. Like it's eventually going to catch up.
And this is coming from someone who had a credit score in the 400s for a bike they bought, a car that payment that they missed and almost lost their job, their mortgage license for the job they had for over 10 years, who bought their first house 10 years into being a mortgage broker. Now, with a portfolio, a real estate portfolio worth over $20 million as of last year, it's probably grown ever since then, since I last was in your boot camp. That's quite the trajectory from 400 credit score to 20 over $20 million in real estate portfolio. That if you can do it, other people can do it too. And I think you are absolutely correct. This stuff is going to catch up to you. There will be a reckoning. And so tackling it head on and trying to just melt that shame and the judgment, the fear of judgment and criticism off, and just get the right people in your corner. I think there's also such a feeling of feeling dumb. And I'm a very well educated person, and even reviewing my tax return, I'm envious that you see 100 or so a year, because I still feel so dumb when I review it. I still have
Oh
so
my
many
gosh.
questions, and I didn't become an accounting major or anything, and so I thought, oh, I should actually just ask Brad if he'll walk through this with me, because I think everything's right, but I still want to have a better confidence and working knowledge of these things. So that's not abnormal, though. I think I'm in the majority, I'd say. People get together everything they need to throw it into TurboTax or at their accountant, and then just cross their fingers and hope that that it's correct and that they cover everything and that they're not going to get audited. But you can be more empowered if you want to spend the time or you want to hire the right people to be in your corner. But I think that it's just something we need to tackle more. And even myself, I think from where Dave and I were in the past to where we are to where I want to get to be really dangerous with good working knowledge, not because I want to switch careers by any means, but just have that confidence and also know the people that I have hired to be in my corner. I have a great attorney, actually, from your introduction. I have a great CPA. I have a great financial mentor, which can be different, like you said. I love that distinction you called out there, because I was confused and thought advisor and actually changed it to that. All of those things are so important for your personal finance, and I think I found such peace after I did certain things. After we got our trust established this past January, I had this wave of peace. I'm like, man, I just know if I die today, things are going to be okay for my kids and my family. And that feels
Hmm.
really good. It's not, I think I'm the opposite. I'm weird, I think, where I think these things are exciting and make me feel better. Whereas when we have a big presentation at these conferences about the liability of a short term rental and getting sued and how you need contracts, I'm like, oh, this is so helpful. Now I'll just implement that and now I won't be scared anymore. So I think that people just shy away from this stuff instead of tackling it head on, like you said, like running it into the storm.
So true. Love it. No, and I appreciate you bringing it out and sharing it, because if somebody's willing to invest the 60 minutes that we just did in this conversation, like, it literally could be a catalyst that changes the entire trajectory of their life. I
Totally.
wish I would have done things sooner. I can only
Mhm.
imagine where I'd be. And yes, like you said, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Like, I was the slowest learner, and majority of the people who knew me, I don't know, 20 years ago would have never thought I'd even probably be alive today. So,
Mhm. Yeah, you're not alone. I think that's the biggest message for people too. You're not alone, and tackle it today. I think from wherever you are, even if you're in a decent spot, you can still there's always room for improvement there.
for sure, for sure. Don't let our egos get in the way.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, thank you so much for joining. Where can people find you, Brad?
I'm old school Facebook. That is the best place. Brad Flanagan, Home Loans by Brad Flanagan. Plenty of content out there.
Awesome. I know you're posting more regularly, which I like, which is what reminded me that you'd be a fantastic guest on this show today. So
Thank
thank
you
you
so
so much,
much.
everyone who's watching or listening. Have a beautiful day, and please rate and review this podcast. It helps more people find it, especially this episode. This was a really special one today, and I think so packed with so many nuggets of information that will help someone. So the more you like, review, share, the more people you can help with it. So on that note, have a great day, Brad.
You too. Thank you.
As always, if you enjoyed this show, please leave a review, because when you leave a review or share an episode, you make it easier for someone else to find us and benefit from these stories and tips we share. There is a link to everything we talked about in the show notes. Thank you all for listening to the Balancing Ambitions podcast, and have a beautiful day.